I'll start it over. Call the meeting order at 5:46. The roll call has been noted by Doug. Item 3 is appearances. There's nobody here to appear on something that is not on the agenda. I know you guys are here for the item that's on the agenda. There's no one in the Zoom room, so we can close the appearance section. Item 4 is the approval of the minutes from July 18th and September 19th. Is there a motion for approval? Motion approved. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any additions, edits? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes have been passed and moving on to item 5, and we need a motion to pick this back up from the table.
A motion to bring this matter back up from the table.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, item has been removed from the table, I think. Yeah,
There you go. All right.
So we're now. All right, so now we can move on to item 5, which is a public hearing by Henry Bauman at 4545 Winnequa Road. They're requesting a variance from the Monona Municipal Code of Ordinance Section 480-24D7A, which is the maximum accessory structure height, and the Monona Municipal Code of Ordinance Section 480-24D7C1, which is this accessory structure street yard setbacks for the purpose of adding a second level to an existing detached garage for an accessory dwelling unit. This is case number Z4/2024. I know you presented this before, so maybe a brief overview of what it is that you're trying to do, and maybe highlight if there's been any changes since the last time.
Okay. So thank you all again for being here today. We are here, as you said, on the topic of constructing the ADU above our detached garage at 4545 Winnequa Road. Since the last meeting, we once again met with the Planning Commission earlier this week, where we presented it again, and it was deemed a conditional use by them. So that was really good news to us. And just to tell you a little bit more about the project, it is, technically 2 stories when you are looking at it from the road. However, from the uphill side, it is essentially a 1-story. I mean, you can literally step from the lawn onto the top of the garage as it sits now, because that garage is graded into the hill. And the reason why that's important is because from both of our neighbors' perspectives, it is, more of that 1-story. And I understand why they wouldn't want to have, that 2-story maybe right next to their house, which, so it's good that it's 1-story. And in addition to that, because it's set forward on the lot down the hill from the house, it is not next to either of our neighbor's house, it's down the hill from them. So right next to their detached garage, which is, it's actually set closer to the street than ours is. So our garage is set a little bit. So yeah, just to paint a little bit of a picture for you there. And yeah, so with it being deemed a permitted use, our understanding was that that kind of changed how it would be considered in the context of the variance. So I'm looking forward to taking spots. Thank you.
Oh, Brett's here.
Hey, Brad.
Back out.
Brad, we can let you know if you want to bail, you're welcome to bail. When we started the meeting, we included Jesse as a voting member, but it's up to you if you want to stay as a voting member, and then we'll have Jesse observe either that, or you're free to go. It appears as if maybe you can't hear us.
Is there a mic on this?
No,
Oh,
he's just contemplating his answers.
Really thoughtful.
Yes.
Are you able to hear us?
Oh, he's
I
gone.
guess-
All right.
All right. The Wi-Fi is bad at the pool.
Yeah,
All right.
Well, whoops.
Okay, well, there's no one else to speak in the public hearing section, so we can move on to item 6, which is a consideration of action by Henry Bauman at 4545 Winnequa Road, requesting a variance from Monona Municipal Code Ordinance Section 480-24D7A, maximum accessory structure height, and Monona Municipal Code of Ordinances, section 480-24D7C1, accessory structure street yard setbacks for the purpose of adding a second level to the existing detached garage for an accessory dwelling unit, case number Z4-2024. Brad, can you hear us? Brad, are you able to hear us?
I have no audio.
Okay.
We can hear you.
We can type in the chat.
Yeah.
Tell them that we have quorum.
And that we can hear him.
We don't have chat, we have chat still.
Oh, well, maybe mute him. Then we'll just continue on.
See if. Can you hear us yet, Brad? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That way we don't get him maybe swearing at Wi-Fi. So, all right, so we have a consideration of action and it's open for discussion, but we'll start with Doug, if you can give, because I know there's good context that will help this group figure out what our job is.
So this request, just as a reminder that there's sort of twofold with this, the accessory dwelling unit request. So the conditional use permit that the applicant mentioned, that went through the planning commission, it was approved on Monday night. So that is specifically for the use of the ADU, effectively for the additional family members to be able to live on the same lot in two separate structures. So that was considered by the planning commission. They did look at things such as the materials and sort of the, how it's in keeping or otherwise with the neighborhood. They determined that it is in keeping. It met the general use performance standards and they did unanimously approve that conditional use permit on Monday night. So the second part of the request is what's before us this evening, and that is for the dimensional relief. And so if you're thinking of it that way, the use has been approved, but the setbacks and so the variance here, the request this evening is for the location itself of the proposed ADU. So there's two variances that are being requested. And that would be the maximum accessory structure height, which is typically 14 feet, 1-4. And this being the two-story structure does exceed that. As far as how I take that measurement, that's always from the lowest point at finished grade. So typically at the bottom of, say, a garage door. So that is the case on the street side of this property. And then also accessory structure street yard setbacks. That the ordinance reads that accessory structures, anything detached, sheds, detached garage, anything like that, cannot be forward of the house. The house should be sort of the front line of that, and then the setbacks for accessory structures, they should be set behind it effectively. So in the side yard or the rear yard, and as I think most of us know, very few are allowed in shore yard if that's the case. And so they're the two sections here that the applicant is requesting the setback variance for, or the dimensional relief for the two.
And to note, Doug, is it accurate to say that the plan commission gave the conditional use based on the plans that show it on top of the garage with the height, with the pitch
That's correct.
in that
Yes.
specific location? So like the condition of use is as drawn, which I think is a helpful thing for us to kind of note when we look at area variance of like where and how high of what was approved as the zoning piece. Because then if we're looking at area, can you use the area described as it's zoned right now? And I know I'm kind of putting the cart a little bit before the horse. That is the undue hardship, is that they're not able to.
That would be for the board to decide. So yeah.
Should we check on Brad again?
Brad, can you hear us now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
right.
So, with all that effort, you're welcome to stay if you want. We do have Jesse here. We have a full slate of people. He can either stay as a voting member and you can, have the night off, or you're welcome to stay and Jesse can do another night of observation.
Totally your preference.
I think with the technical issues that I'm having, I will take the night off.
All right, enjoy. Thank you, Brett. Thanks, Brett.
Thank you.
All right, with that, I'll just throw it open to the group, whoever wants to chime in first. Don't feel obligated, but
I will actually start. Doug, could you clarify a little bit for me what you had just said related to the location of the unit? Because I understand that the height restriction and the setback restriction I get. It's not clear to me how the location of the unit plays into that being forward of the house. Is that a zoning code item or is that just a?
That is part of the zoning code and that's sort of the second piece here, D7C1. So in sort of the simplest form, it would be that I think the intention of the ordinance, and this is sort of a little separate from the request here, but would be that shouldn't be, say, storage sheds in the front yard.
Yeah.
They should be in the side yard or the rear. And so that's sort of the intention here. To help visualize, let's say, if this garage were attached to the house, then it would just be a part of the house, and that could be forward. So there are some where that connection is made. I don't think it would meet the setbacks anyway, just given the street yard setbacks, but that's sort of the reasoning behind that and generally the reason for that accessory structure setback.
And so does the garage today, is it like
It would be
already
existing, not
violating?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So maybe for Doug first and then I'll get to you. So I mean, in item 5 and 6, it asks us to talk about, to consider the street yard setback. But if it's already in violation and it cannot be there, is that really something we're considering?
So that's an existing non-conformance too, right? The setback and the,
Well, I mean, we can't, it just doesn't matter even if it met a 30-foot setback because it's an accessory structure, it already doesn't belong technically in the front of the
Correct.
house.
But by the way the ordinance is written, the intention would be that it be located within the side yard, even if that's 50 feet back.
Okay.
And so the read of it is that the setback for accessory structures shall match that of the primary. And so typically that would be 30 feet. Most of them are built close to that setback line. But in this case, it's much further than that, much further setback. And the accessory structure would need to be in line or behind them.
Okay, so, hello. Can you just describe, because there aren't pictures really of your backyard? I mean, there's some, I think there were maybe other front line, I don't remember, but just what is it like in your backyard?
So the backyard is, I believe we have 50 feet of lakefront, correct? So it's exactly pretty much 50 feet of lakefront. The house is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's as close to the lake as it can be. So, you know, like he said, it's very far, very setback far, which not relative to the other houses, but just relative to the road. And so I don't have the exact measurements of how far the house is from.
What is it? Is it flat out to the water? What is it like?
So from the house, it starts sloping down towards the water right away. Like at no point is it really flat, except for maybe when you step out the door. So it's kind of like this, and then it starts going down and then it drops off. So our stairs going down are very steep. We're like one of the only houses along there that doesn't have a boathouse either. So it's just very
Okay.
steep stairs that drop down.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
It's about 75 feet back from the water line. It's the front of the house, or the back of the house.
And then, so how far is it from where the slope starts at the back of the house? How far before you hit your stairwell?
Oh, 50 feet.
But it's continual
Great.
slope. no?
Yeah.
And then how much room do you have on the side in between?
So on the, that would be, I guess, like the north side, it's pretty tight up against our neighbor's house. They actually just built a big house there earlier, or last year, I guess that would be. On the south side, I would say it's probably about 7 feet.
That's what it looks like on your
Yeah.
plan drawing too.
Yeah. Like it's enough, like maybe for like a tiny excavator to get through, but it's,
Narrow lot.
yeah, it's, I mean, like all those lots, it's just really long and narrow.
And then the garage, did you build that garage or was it there when you moved in?
It was a existing structure when I bought it, so
Okay.
it was kind of dilapidated. Got it, it's either fix it up as the garage, or then this idea came up that we talked about trying to keep the property in the family and able to share space and growing family, and getting a little bit older and the future, trying to plan the future a little bit, so, yeah, that we she came up, these guys came up with the idea, most of it, I thought it was a sharp idea, and we brought it forth and just trying to see if we can make it happen.
Will it go, the ADU go on top of the existing garage? Or are
Yes.
you rebuilding
Yes.
it?
It would be like the exact footprint, maybe a little bit smaller just to comply like with the normal dimensions of like the existing ADU in Monona. But like I said, it's just exactly a perfect kind of square that's already completely flat on the top.
Mhm.
The roof is, pretty damaged as it is, so it just, yeah, like you said, it's very dilapidated. It's a bit of an eyesore.
But the existing foundation is solid enough to
Yes.
construct on top of, so we try to reuse that we
All the new, they would need to be all
remodel
new.
the garage,
supported
and then that
beams,
garage
so.
would remain in garage, and then just be the 720 square foot. Accessory unit on top of that.
That's it, thanks.
Question for Doug. So the plan commission approved an ADU on their lot. It doesn't really matter where it is. It's if they build an ADU, they can put it on their lot.
It's a good question. My understanding is that they approved that ADU specifically. And so, they were looking at materials, they were looking at those things as well. So to be extreme, they didn't approve sort of a different dimensioned structure or anything like that. So it would be certainly the setback relief that's needed is the ZBA's consideration, but as part of the general use performance standards, it was, is it in keeping with the neighborhood sort of as put forth? And so I would guess, and I would assume that it is this proposal kind of a second story garage addition and not another, sort of a large shed type area.
So if we approve the variance with the ADU on top of the garage, we're legalizing the non-conforming garage.
That's correct.
Which was part of the conditional use permit approved by plan commission. So in effect,
So you can't separate the two from the plan commission's conditional use permit.
The plan commission conditional use was tied to the this being built upon the existing garage. Yeah.
clarifying question. If we approved the variance as it relates to height and setback. The garage goes away and it just becomes one unit that we're approving.
Yeah, the garage doesn't. like,
No
if they
longer
built an
exists, really.
ADU and then they wanted to do something with the garage, they'd have to follow the current, footprint and whatnot, but
Yeah,
then if we approve it, from my understanding, they're no longer non-conforming. The garage, everything, the 2 stories
Yeah.
are no longer non-conforming.
That's my understanding, and any modifications to that, let's say they wanted to put 5 more feet on the front of the garage or something, lengthen it. That would still need to come through because it would be another, violation of the ordinance. It could not be done by right. So it is my understanding that sort of as part of this, the expansion of the nonconformity makes the nonconformity legal, and sort of the variance allows for that. One thing that I should have mentioned, one of the conditions that was included in the plan commission approvals was that the ground floor garage has to remain that use. That this is not to become 2-story, 1,400 square foot space. That was part of the review that the commission liked, that this retaining the existing use on the ground floor. And it was truly one level of addition, and not a staircase and then sort of all these extra pieces going.
And one last question.
Yep.
If they sell the property, the conditional use goes away,
Correct.
Yes.
and then there's an empty second story place on the top of it, and there's what does the next landowner get to do with it?
So my understanding is that the next owner would have to apply for the CUP, and then sort of go through the same process.
What if they don't want to do an ADU? What if they want
I,
woodworking shop or something like that, or some manufacturing
Yeah.
soaps or?
I would expect with that it would be sort of a pulling back of some of the elements that are within this. So, some of the plumbing, some of those pieces that would be a part of this, they, as part of that, to kind of reoccupy that space, they would need to go through those and sort of take those pieces out or make them not useful anymore. And so that would bring it back to an accessory structure, not dissimilar to a garage or a workshop or something that would not be habitable. That would be kind of the key. And sort of follows with other discussions that we've had, where folks have got close to ADUs but not applied for that specifically. So certainly recognize the challenges of enforcement with that, but that would be one of the things that this, the ADU and sort of the request here for the dimensions runs with the land. And so certainly if this board wanted to put conditions to that effect, or, sort of that they saw were appropriate to the request this evening, but certainly the CUP is only for the applicant, and any future owner would need to come through again.
So it sounds like we would just be approving basically just the structure to be there. And any use and any future use would need to come back to plan.
That's my
So
understanding.
that conditional. And then we would have the ability to enforce, so if you guys sold. And someone didn't come forward, and then they're having someone live in there, then we could enforce that they don't have conditions for use to live in. Okay.
Of course, the idea is that
That
we
won't
don't want,
happen.
yeah.
We gotta think through all the scenarios.
I know, I
Yes.
just make sure that that's clear, that that's.
Yep, I'm sure this is like very dry for you guys, but yeah, look,
No,
we're trying to think
I
through all
completely
those
understand.
scenarios. Makes sense.
It's our community too.
Yeah, yeah, you don't want you wanna make sure that we're doing the same level of thinking for your neighbors, so.
Of course.
Other thoughts?
Yeah, I have a couple of additional questions, I think, so just bear with me. What does this space look like?
It's a lot of like mature evergreen trees
Okay,
in between the house and the yard. So like where you see this, yeah, that's all asphalt.
Yeah.
And then this is, kind of green space, of course, and then the trees go all.
is it flat?
No, it's all a hill.
It's a hill, the
Yeah. So
whole
it's
thing is.
the main house is essentially a house on top of a hill.
Because it goes
And
this
that-
way both
Yeah.
sides,
And I
okay,
think that's why it was so attractive, that location to the planning commission, because they're like, it's not a nuisance to the neighbors at all because of the hill. And it really looks like a one-story.
And everybody else, both neighbors are elevated.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they're both on top of the hill with us
Got it.
setback.
because one of the things, I can't find my. So there's three variances being requested here, but two of them, the location, the physical location and the setback from the street are pre-existing. Is that correct?
What do you mean by pre-existing?
already a violation. Like it's,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yes, so
Like not much we could do on that.
right, so the
Yeah.
thing that would change is the height restriction, that's the change.
Right.
Okay,
And for us, ultimately, the first part that's there at the location, it would be taking that, as Beth pointed out, a non-conforming piece.
right.
and Effectively
Effectively
legalizing.
the non-conformance, understood.
Yeah, if I may, I mean, with the height, last time the question came up of, well, why do you need those few extra feet? To which, the answer was that the garage is basically, I think, the minimum of like, that you could stand up in or fit a garage in, or fit a car, and it's really not like a high ceiling garage or by any means. So to build on top of that and make that a habitable space and, use that permitted for its permitted, we can't really shave anything off there. Or at least comply with the variance, I guess I would say.
Doc, this might sound like a strange question, but did a real pitch come up at the planning commission?
I think it did, and I think just the character of the, so I think the materials, the roof, materials that have been chosen, are gonna match that or mimic the house, and the siding will complement as well, so certainly the architecture and overall aesthetic of it were, considered in a way that it made it, the two buildings are related, you know, and certainly complement one another, so that was absolutely considered.
That's a couple questions. I just want to clarify, from the site plan. The existing garage right now on the non-conforming spaces, the front, is the nominal setback 30 feet for a garage, is that correct? Or any portion of a dwelling?
The primary structure would be 30 feet from
Okay.
the street setback.
Okay,
Yes,
so you're asking for about 16 feet, 4 inches. It's out of compliance, correct? The front, yeah. And then the side, is that 6 feet? Is that a 6-foot setback?
accessory would be 3.
3, okay, all right.
But the garage that would become conforming, that's non-conforming, would be 7.
Because it's a 2-story structure, isn't it?
Isn't it?
No,
It would still be.
it would still be an accessory structure.
Okay.
Oh, okay, interesting. Okay. So 3. So they are in compliance in the side yard then?
Yes,
Okay. All right. So then it's then, just to clarify, we're asking for 2 variances. Is that correct?
yes, the height and then the street.
And this is, right, street setback. Okay. I'll make sure that's clarified.
Which it's not the normal 30, because it's still an accessory.
Yeah, it doesn't comply at all, it needs to be there.
Yeah.
Or here or here,
Right, but
yeah.
I guess my question was from any structure, right? If we're looking at buildings, any building, right? From
Well, it would be
setback,
a primary building.
primary building.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah,
would be 30.
Which is the actual house.
You can't have the accessory one in the front, right? I mean, yes,
Now, we've had unique scenarios, only I think one that I can remember where there was contemplation of a structure on the street yard and what constitutes true attachment to the primary. Does a breezeway count as attachment or not? And how enclosed does that breezeway need to be? We don't need to go down that
Yeah,
rabbit hole
yeah,
here.
right.
Because it's so far away, but we have had that discussion of like. Does a 10-foot breezeway with just the roof, is that attached, or does it need to have? Walls and,
Right.
Conditioned
They put
space.
walls on.
yeah,
Mhm.
For a tunnel perhaps?
yeah.
all of it, yeah, we do have at least one house that has that issue.
So just to be clear, like, for it to be appropriately located, it would need to be in an
Yeah.
impossible location.
Yep,
Just making sure I'm understanding that correctly.
and like the key part that like. I asked at the beginning for me was. The plan commission approved it as designed for the conditioned use, so they have approval for a use here.
Right, it's a permitted
On that
use.
spot.
And ultimately, to me, the hardship is met because they're not able to use what they've been given as a conditional use. So therefore, they have a hardship. Because they were told you can have an ADU, and they were told by design, you can have it here. They were approved for a use in a location that
They
kind of forces our hand.
Anywhere.
There is nowhere else.
So it's their fault.
Yeah. So I'm hoping someone eventually will consider maybe making a motion for undue hardship and maybe wrap their brain around those pieces. The physical property limitations, I think we all understand, this is extremely narrow.
Yeah.
Long,
Hilly.
hilly
Yeah.
location, and there's only one spot to put this in. There were other residents from the neighborhood that were here last time they were here and spoke in favor. And the topographical aspect of the land doesn't pose any harm to any of the public interest.
Are you motioning for us?
I'm not, because I don't like doing that as the chair, I'm the facilitator.
I actually would make a motion. That's kind of why I wanted you to talk about your backyard. I wanted to know
Yeah.
if it would be possible to put it back there. I mean, you do have our plan commission who's already approved your plans as designed. And I agree with Brian. I think the unnecessary hardship would be for us to say, no, because if we go against what the plan commission approved for you, there really is no other place on your entire property to put this structure.
And can I ask you a clarifying question, or are you in the middle of a motion? Sorry.
I'm motioning, but you.
Oh, well, I was just
That's
saying, and even if this were flat, they have to be 50 feet back from the
Yeah.
lake, right? Wouldn't even matter.
Exactly.
Okay, just making sure, sorry.
Yep, that would get to the unique physical limitations of the property. You're one of those lakefront properties, there really is no other place to put something, you're narrow. You've got the dive kind of going down the whole way from the backyard, you're going up to the house, you're going down to the water. So it's a unique physical property limitation. I don't believe there's harm to the public interest because it sounds like you had supporting neighbors. I wasn't at the meeting where you were, so this was my first go at this, but that's my motion is to approve.
Is there a second?
Do you want to say as designed or something like that, so that
Oh,
if
you
the
wanna?
plans don't, if the plans,
Yeah,
like if there's a, somebody want a deck on the front or.
yes, it has to be as designed. If you wanna make any changes, you're gonna have to come back to zoning.
Absolutely.
Which is
Can you
highly
add that
unlikely.
condition? Yeah.
Is there a second before we ask more questions?
Can I add to their motion or not?
Do a second, then we can always do a friendly amendment.
I second.
Okay, now you can.
I think we've done this. In prior motions. That. Make sure that the applicants are aware that. This stays with the land, not the owner, right? Our approval or denial, it sticks with the land. The variance was a land permit, not a, right, building onto permit.
Mhm.
That includes all decks, staircases, or any other structure attached to that structure. Make sure people are aware of that. So when they submit their final plans to the city, they are aware of that structure is permanent and not beyond. I just want to make sure, I want to clarify that.
Yeah, that's good.
The one thing I did notice, on here, the drawings, did not coincide with each other, the staircase. You had mentioned that earlier,
Yeah, I put a note on the rendering too.
right? So I think I want to make sure, clarify that if there is less or more stairs needed on a deck, that extends the structure or lessens the structure.
If I could, if it's the will of the board, potentially it would be minimal stairs needed to access the permitted use or something, only intrusive, something along those lines.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
If I could sort of suggest that some minimally obtrusive stairs necessary to access it from that north side from the house, so if it needs 3 stairs, that's it, it doesn't become sort of this huge staircase, something along those lines that I think that would meet what you're sort of looking at as it gets to final design, but not sort of add on anything that doesn't have a purpose.
Is that a condition or
I
or
think
just
as
like
design-
that's the way, yeah, it has to.
As long as this board is comfortable, I think as design could include that, the staircase design is still to be finalized or something, but it's minimally.
Sorry, I have one other question. If 50 years down the line they rebuild it. How much can they rebuild it before they have to come back to plan commission or zoning board?
There probably won't be zoning laws in 15 years.
I believe that it would be, because it runs with the land, this could be rebuilt as is, with no expansion, vertical or footprint would be because this has now become legal for if the motion passes, this has become legal, such that that would be the case. If it were non-conforming, there's different, elements, but if this becomes legal, then that it can be rebuilt.
Doug, to that, the deck slash stairs point. At plan commission, was it discussed
Yeah, I was
This?
asking the same question.
or this?
They were aware of that, the rendering struggled with the grade, which struggled to show that, and it was certainly mentioned by the applicants that it's not gonna be 7 steps. Or
No, but is it gonna be a deck or
Yeah,
just stairs?
because this shows just stairs with a platform.
It was the renderings that they were looking at.
It was, yeah, the rendering, actually Chris, Homburg suggested a much better way to do it would probably be to do some decking to meet the grade rather than do a stairwell, because the way I think the hill comes down to meets the back end of the garage, it actually slopes a little bit towards the driveway. So where the door, either move the door
Yep.
the other side, so it's where the flat part meets, or do several feet of decking off, so that you could box essentially right off the grade of the lawn right onto the deck and into the door. And that would be, about the distance with the table. And he thought that'd be better than having stairs in the winter
Yeah.
and safer and.
So is there a deck on the
Can
deck?
I rescind?
You can add an amendment to the motion that's on the table. We can do the second.
I would like to amend that. I'd like to amend the motion that plans come back to the actual building of the proper building structure itself. And not clarifying what is gonna be built or not built for a deck. That's my motion.
So what does that essentially mean?
I would like to see actual plans that are to be built and not speculation.
So let's see, so that wouldn't necessarily be an amendment, it would be,
I'm honestly not sure if that could be done.
This has happened before. From my seat, that plans do not specify enough to what is actually being approved. Plans come to the commission, this table, it is the buildable set of plans. Not assumptions, not speculations. Right, so that's my motion as a second, that
Or is that just become a nay? to
Yeah, I was
the-
gonna say, is that a nay?
I think it's a nay to the
yeah,
original motion.
yeah, so I think you can probably remove your second.
I'll remove my second then.
So
So we still have a motion, is someone willing to make a second so we can keep discussing this?
So just, I wanna be very clear.
Yeah.
Make a second so we can. discuss it.
Second,
All right, for discussion.
so basically, what we're looking at, can I have a pen?
Yep.
Only one here without one, is that, okay. Second,
And the possibility of the door going to the other side of where it's located.
This.
But I think also to Wynn's point is, hang on, a deck is part of the structure, and if we're given an area variance,
That's correct.
we should
yes,
really
understood.
have it accurately described what the area variance is.
Mhm.
That is correct.
So,
Because if it's the drawing, right now we have drawings that show 2 different areas, because it goes with the land. We want to make sure that we're super crystal clear on what was approved and what wasn't. So there's no confusion later, but I hear a possible question or concern.
I was just a little confused on the actual, so whether it's a stairway or a stretch of decking. It is part of what you're considering the area that you're permitting.
That is correct.
Yeah.
So
So
like
imagine-
staircases off your house, home, is part of the structure and listed in the zoning, in your zoning plat survey. So that's a permanent structure of your house. This is the same thing. Like this was your house, the staircase would be part of the actual structure. And if it encroached into the zoning setbacks, this is part of the structure. So even this part of the structure has to abide by those setback requirements.
And we want, I mean, to protect you, I know you guys have been to a lot of meetings, trust me, I get to, I understand that, like, come on, we're getting to our wits' edge here, and at the same time. Part of it is to ensure that
you have accurately approved what it is that you guys want to build. So you guys don't start building something and then someone go, whoa, whoa, whoa,
Here's what, if the builder. it's-
you want this
that's-
deck,
yeah.
and we're like, no, no,
I
no.
apologize. My understanding was that, as the planning commission understood it, and when we discussed it there, either would be fine, and there was a little bit of wiggle room with that.
Because they're saying conditional use, they
Right.
don't care because it's on the backside.
Understood.
Mhm.
Let's just say they approve that second one.
Yep.
Even if it comes out, if they approve the width of that deck coming out, then didn't we just meet what he said? They told us, yeah, we're not gonna build the stairs up like that. It's just gonna be a flat piece.
Yep.
They approved us, even if it's elevated in that photo, for a square right there, like he
We
drew.
do. Absolutely. What we're saying is we don't need the dimensions.
Yeah, so
Oh,
just to clarify,
Like how far it goes out.
Right.
How far it goes out,
they
how far it
approved
goes
what
out.
it's being used for, we
You
have
have a
to approve the
staircase here,
area.
but you have no part of your deck,
Right.
your plans.
And the side.
Sure.
Unfortunately, this should come in, this hillside should come in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
the hillside
they
should-
know that,
Yeah.
but
So.
But it's not
you know,
accurately represented.
You know, our reasoning here is to make sure it is crystal clear, black and white, right, from all parties. Right, so that when someone goes to build the structure, right, it's crystal clear from the building inspector. Right, point of view, when he walks on the site, that he sees the plans and knows exactly what has been permitted, right, from all parties.
can you say today that we approve a maximum dimension of, let's say, 4x10?
I was just gonna say, could we approve, I mean, it can only go so far as the hill, right? It's not like they could build a 40-foot deck off the back because it would run into a hill, correct? So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
If-
hill
literally
and no,
the hill.
and no wider than the width of the structure itself.
If we, obviously, if there are conditions put forth today
Yeah.
saying this is the maximum deck size that we approve, obviously, we're going to move forward on that basis. And the plans will be amended accordingly, which we could, resubmit.
I was actually gonna ask the same question.
300 angle upstairs.
It is 9.25 inch tread width by 7.5 inch height, guys.
Okay. So if you, that way, that would keep them from extending,
Yeah, I'm not concerned about the staircase, because the staircase is drafted here, right, and if you comply to all code requirements for staircases. and
You're talking
steps.
about the deck.
I'm talking about the deck,
Right.
there's no deck showing here, I don't know what size that
Show
deck
here,
is.
but it
I
shows.
don't know if it's
here.
8 feet out, 5 feet out, 7 feet out, I don't know if it goes to the corner of the. Corner here, it comes out, what those dimensions are, we don't know that, we don't suggest anything, right, that's not our position to suggest.
Well, we don't have to suggest, but we can tell them, this is what we can tell them, like, could be 4x10 or whatever. That it can't extend beyond that, because we've done that before.
Okay, right,
But I don't really know what a standard builder, I don't know.
Yep. Let me
What
know,
would it
let me
be?
know if this resolves it for you or not. So motion was made, I seconded it. If I want to can I make the friendly amendment?
Yep.
So
And you can just talk about it before making the friendly amendment if you want.
proposing that friendly amendment to see if this alleviates your concern. If we say, that has to be flat, right? So only out it can only go out as far as the hill. And it needs to be, width wise, less than or equal to, width of the house minus 4 feet, give it 2 feet on either side or something like that. As a condition moving forward for whatever the deck would be.
I could go with that, that's your wheelhouse, obviously.
I'm asking you, if you're comfortable with it. I mean, that's just,
That gives a maximum area
right.
for which the deck and stairs to be built in. For discussion's sake, for the applicant. It's important to know, we all recently did some training, as you can see, which is good.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to get calibrated on a lot of this. It's unlikely for people to get a variance, to be able to come back and get a secondary variance for the same kind of stuff. So I would also want you to think through, how comfortable are you with a description of us having something as, well, less than 4 feet of the width and can only extend as far as the grade of the hill. And that's gotta incorporate steps, so that's not just the deck with steps after it, but that's gotta encompass it all. How comfortable are you with that? Versus the idea of like, hold the phone, we'll verify that, redraw it, come back, we know what we're getting.
Is there, I mean, is there a formula for what size of deck would be acceptable?
But I think that's what-
They're
that's-
saying it's gonna just be built into the grade of the hill, so it won't like be extend, which would make sense. So I think that description
You
is,
can't go any
Apt.
further than the height of the door in the
I
grade of
think,
the hill.
I think what, I think what he's saying, and let me know if I'm putting your words in your mouth, is if you go back and you start to build this, and for whatever reason, your builder says, well, the deck that they approved for you doesn't work. We can't do that.
Yeah, I do.
Then you have to come back to get a different variance, and you're probably not getting that different variance because it's no longer a hardship. So you're running a risk of that these are not final plans, but that's
Yeah.
your risk, not our risk.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
So you want that picture to reflect what exactly that deck,
With the dimension, yeah.
what the dimensions.
This
You
is
want
what,
this picture and that picture.
yeah,
sure,
well,
the,
mainly the building plans.
Yeah,
not-
the building plans are the.
Yeah,
These are like not just specs, these are just to show, like I said, the finishings and all that, so.
yeah, so you guys drew what you want on that back there with some size. And you're like, this is what we need, then we're confident of like, that's what we're approving.
I mean, The builder
I know.
just asked me,
Look at the
like,
opposite.
what size deck do you want?
I
And
understand.
he's not gonna say that whether or not it's gonna work right now, so I think like either way that there's risk.
Yeah.
So just so you know that.
What's that?
How close are
So-
you to having plans?
So we're working with a lumber company, Nelson Young Lumber Company, and they provide, plans on the front end, under the premise that you use them for materials if your plan is approved or whatever. So they haven't like come out to our house or anything like that, so they haven't seen it. So we're just kind of poised to move forward as soon as we're ready, but like I said, I'm not gonna have them come out there until we know whether or not it's feasible. So he had these plans drawn up for me, and he just said like the stairs railed, like none of the exterior stuff needs to be shown right now. He said the finalized construction plans would not differ from this really in any way, cause I asked him if he could do something like this and he said I would have to get it done separately. So sorry. That's the
No,
wrong
it's okay,
way.
'cause,
that helps, that helps.
I think you'll find like different communities are different in how they approach conversations, right? And we
Mhm.
want to make sure you get exactly what you want, right? I mean, that's the premise, right? If you're coming and asking for a variance, you're gonna get exactly, or hopefully exactly what your plan shows.
Mhm.
This is what we ask, right? And so we want to make sure, again, black and white, super clear, like if this is stand today, right? You know exactly what your limitations are,
Mhm.
right? And
Yep.
where your boundaries are. I think that's just the premise. We want to make sure that's very clear.
Of course.
So I think at the end of the day, there's some question on when and those plans may be presented and how we want to proceed with that.
Going back to the question of how comfortable are you having something and then you have to design within that box versus the idea of going back and determining what box do we really need and having that accurately approved.
I think if we made it like just a normal sized deck, I mean, I feel like you can always,
You have,
dig a little into the grade. But, you can't,
no, that's the point is that we're not.
well, if they approve us for a deck size, right, was that part of where we could just design a small deck to fit? And then in theory, we could cut back the grade if it does need to sit a little flat?
Grade has nothing to do with the building.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I had proposed was that it would have to stop at the hill.
Yeah.
Oh,
That was.
we
I mean,
can't
again,
propose like building giving you the dimensions right now and just being like, that's cool.
So-
That doesn't work.
I know, I like that idea, but I wish.
I said it's gonna be your deck, so. Just-
I totally appreciate your points.
So,
I'm totally comfortable with making it work. I mean, it's a simple deck. I mean,
right.
if certain
Like it's
width,
really, so
it
it's like,
stops at the hill.
Yeah.
I'm totally good with that.
you
I
can
just
have a
want it to
little
work.
grill on it.
I don't wanna
not
have
for
stairs.
birdie.
I don't wanna have to have stairs. If I-
Yeah,
I don't wanna shovel stairs. I don't wanna be climbing stairs in the winter. If I, the one step off the hill onto the deck is what's important to me. So I guess if we could figure out a way to word that. I'm
So I think
totally
I'm
comfortable
hearing
with it.
You're
A-
never
a
gonna
deck
put
that
a
extends-
table or anything out on the deck, like if it's restricted to, 6 feet, you can't really get a table and chairs and anything like that on there.
You can come hang out on you on the table.
A 6-foot deck. So, okay. It's the access point we were trying to get at. I mean, I'm getting, I think it's getting a little spun away with the idea of a deck. I mean, yeah, nice to have a deck there, but more importantly, I just want to have practical ingress and egress from the house is safe and as straightforward as possible. I didn't realize that this was gonna get jam things up, otherwise I wouldn't brought it here.
Yeah.
So apologies for that. So it's either we take this back, get it redrawn, come back to you, or come up with some language to make it work.
So just so we're clear on what you're asking, in an ideal world, would you not just like to have you walk it out onto your deck? And then it runs to this edge of the house? Would you say that that's good for you?
That's good.
Okay, so like, that's, I guess, what we're asking for, so that helps you decide what you're willing to allow.
So now can I do the friendly amendment part?
Yeah, are you gonna add a dimension to it, or are you
No.
gonna add?
Well, sort of.
Let's
Because
hear it.
based on the.
So my proposed conditional use would be depth from the back of the house to where it hits on flat, it hits the grade would be the maximum depth, and the width would be a maximum of whatever that would be, 20 feet, right?
It's 24 now.
Yeah, 24, 2 on each side, and obviously you're gonna have to fit the stairs in, so that's a maximum. So those would be the maximum dimensions are flat from back to the grade and width of 20 feet. That would be my friendly amendment condition on what the deck would be. It could be no bigger than that, could be smaller than that, but no bigger.
Does that work for you?
That is workable, yeah.
So that was a friendly amendment. Who was the first? You agree with the friendly?
I
amendment?
do.
Okay, now discussion wise, Win, I'm gonna go to you.
Yeah.
Based on that, do you have concerns with what that maximum looks like?
We're missing that page.
If you were a builder and you were given that
We're
as
missing that.
our
page.
restriction is 20 feet wide and we can extend out until we hit grade.
Dig into the hill.
No, I think my answer to that question, I want to ask Doug.
Leave me out of this.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it may be a clarity thing. Is there enough evidence on the table, in front of us? Or language that Jesse has given to make an acceptable second?
I think, suddenly in my role, there's a preference for black and white. That it's a 10 by 10 or whatever, but I appreciate the sentiment here. I'm not the building inspector as to what distance the deck needs to be above grade, for example, or anything like that. And, you know, I think there has been discussion with the applicants of the risk that is associated with this, of what that is. I understand that this would be a deck with the staircase kind of wrapped within it, that we're looking at more of a rectangle than a rectangle with the staircase, that it's sort of a recessed staircase there.
If stairs are even needed.
Yeah, which
right.
the idea is that they wouldn't.
If stairs are needed. But I think one thing the board should be aware of is that we don't quite know the run of this at the back, that this could be, and I'm not aware either. I don't know
Yeah,
if it's-
what I'm concerned about is that from this conversation tonight, we still don't know what that variance is for the total dimensions. For total dimensions, from front to back, left to right, we don't know what those dimensions are.
And
And if you're gonna put this on, this is gonna have to be implemented into this plat of survey, correct? If that is the case, then how are we gonna put that on there? At what point, if this goes right to the book, right, and stamped with the land, when is this gonna be applied? Does that make sense? We don't know that information tonight. Do you understand what I was trying to get to?
Kind of, yeah.
So basically, we're guessing at dimensions. At what point are those dimensions gonna get put on this plat survey? Because this is literally, right, the county.
Yeah.
Okay,
Does the
state.
building inspector have to come and look at that stuff?
This is
Or I guess, yeah,
permitted.
we got that.
This is permitted before the building permit application goes into effect. This has to be in place and approved, right, with the zoning application, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, that is my reasoning. I wanna make sure that's perfectly clear from your guys' understanding. These dimensions have to be drafted onto this plan, right?
Mhm.
Before you get your building permit,
So that way they can enforce the building permit accurately.
so they can enforce the building permit when they look at your structure.
Because we'll need plans showing a deck.
That is correct.
Absolutely,
that was my
but
whole-
not,
that-
but that's separate than this meeting, correct?
That is correct.
Yes.
That is correct.
The only, if I may, the only other thing is, I'm just putting it out as the zoning administrator, the other thing is that accessory structure maximum total square footage on the entire lot is 1,000 square feet. So this is, and that's footprint, so this is 720, I believe, I think that's the dimension,
A good point.
so I don't expect, but if this deck were 290 feet, it would make that, it would be a violation.
That's helpful.
And so that's another guardrail, and I'm not saying it couldn't be drawn or drafted that way, but it's just something else to look into. Without the certainty, that comes with having those plans drawn.
Again, it's like checking the boxes, right?
So,
Going
yeah.
forward, just checking the boxes. And we can't make those decisions tonight because we don't have dimensions. And since we don't have dimensions, how are we gonna get the plat survey correct? If they're not, right? Before that happens.
Yeah, Doug, how have we done that? In the past, I know this has come up at plan commission.
Yeah, in most cases, they have been small. There was the Nishishin example that comes to mind where the steps were to be rotated, and that was a very minor, but it was code compliant steps. And so we kind of knew the width and the height, and it was rotating that through 90. So that was a pretty standard, whereas this with grade, there are other considerations, and I don't recall an example like this. Other conditions that have been imposed as conditions of approval in the past have been things, screen porch that can't be enclosed to a fully conditioned space or something like that. But I don't recall something where it was sort of undefined in some way, if that makes sense.
Well, I want everyone to be clear, probably one on board with it.
Yeah.
So at the end, what I'm sensing is that you're not seeing what you need to see to go good with this. So we need to go back to the drawing board. This can be,
Well, just for your entryway. I mean, the rest of your structure doesn't need to be.
I understand that,
drawings,
but we
yeah.
need another drawing that shows accurately exactly what the dimensions are gonna be,
At least the maximum.
at least the six.
So we can't put a maximum on it tonight? To approve,
I mean, we do have a maximum on it tonight, it's 280, right?
or like 280 or to the hill, or to like the
Well,
Green
it
Hill,
would have to
whichever.
It still has to be two, 280
Yeah,
or less.
whichever
no
is
matter
less,
what.
whichever
Two
is
eighty,
less.
it could be 20-foot wide and
Get it out of there.
I need my calculator.
14?
But I mean, if they came in here with plans that showed to the 1,000 square feet with the deck on, this would be a moot point.
Yes.
So why couldn't we just put on the condition it can't exceed?
With the deck, it can't exceed the 1,000 square foot.
Right,
Someone could,
Because that's allowed
because then it could be
for an accessory structure.
24-foot wide and. how
can't
would
be 20 and 14 would be the.
20 and 14.
It's not gonna be.
And then
He's like, it's gonna be smaller than that, like.
Yeah, 20.
They'll invite us over to see it. and
Yeah,
we'll be
right.
like,
Yeah.
what, we had a whole big meeting
The
about
maximum it could be would be 20 wide, 2 feet in on each side, 14, because that would be 280, which would be the 1,000. But that also is further limited, the 14 out would be further limited by if it hits the grade or not. So the maximum would be 20 by 14.
Now, that's what I'm hearing as a
Yeah.
good friendly amendment, is the first agree with the extension of the deck. And any stairs that might be there, 20 by 14.
Does that make it 1,000? That's 1,000 or less?
Yeah, because it's the thing is
My
720.
math isn't.
The whole thing is.
Mine
the whole
doesn't-
thing
is it what it
Wow,
used
I
to be?
need some sort of.
Yeah, we maybe shouldn't be pressing my mental math on this, but no, the whole thing is 720, right?
It says 720,
Yeah,
yeah, so that's 280.
280.
That's
14
correct.
14 by 20,
Yep, that's correct.
Yes.
I don't know how many friendly amendments I've made, but I didn't know they existed.
That is the one that matters. So we have a motion and we have the amendment with a dimension of a deck maximum.
Oh, being very clear that it's the deck and not the living space. So that's.
Yeah, let's make sure that we
something
say that.
Building is not,
The deck can't, yeah,
it's not part of the.
structure's not changing, how
Right.
you wanna wordsmith it, it's your entry on to into the house.
I have the original condition from the maker, the second that was the condition that this is as designed. The plans are as designed. I think with that, there could be a second, what I'm hearing from the friendly amendment, the deck and stairs specifically cannot exceed 20 by 14. I would maybe ask for clarity, is it 20 by 14 or is it 200, less than 280?
Can we
Does it
say
matter?
280? Cause then it will include the stair, I mean, I don't know, it just.
Because if, for example, if it needs to go 15 feet,
Yeah,
then
the 20 by 14.
Honest question, just sorry. If you had to guess how far it was before you hit the grade from the back of the house, what would you say? Just a guess.
I would say, well, given that the door is gonna be a little bit up, I would say 10 feet maximum.
My only concern with saying max of 280, not again, we're doing hypotheticals. I mean, but yeah, or a wide deck that sticks out past the sides of the house, which would defeat the purpose, but you know what I mean? Like, so I kind
So
of,
what was the other one then? Not 280, but
the 20 by 14 would be the max, and I don't think they'll be able to hit the 14, so I don't think it matters, but.
And then if you want, you can say and not past the side of the house, like if you wanna add that.
I mean, is that too much of a?
I mean, if the board's comfortable with that 20 by 14 or less, I think something like that is,
that friendly amendment, yes.
Yes.
All right, so we have a motion for approval. For the height and the setback.
Yeah.
With the structure as designed. And the addition of a deck that would incorporate any stairs. Not to exceed 20 feet in width, 14 feet in depth.
And clarification of the hardship and unique
With the previous.
That's the
hardship.
previous, that previous motion.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions, concerns?
Good to know.
All right,
I don't think I've ever seen.
hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right. It has passed.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
You can probably run
It's supposed to make it sausage. Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, now you guys know what you actually have
Yes.
approval for.
No, I
Yeah.
completely agree. I even, so like I said, the original, like, people who did the building plan. Yeah, they're like, we can't do anything with color, like.
Not sure if we can.
So I was like, my friends.
Yeah, going to the gamut of
Like, yeah, but I can't.
homeowners.
Like, I can't do that.
Anyway,
Like, oh god, the chairs I know are gonna be.
Oh,
over.
no.
Great
No.
experience and have owners.
This was
Yeah.
good. It was
And
like
so we want to
figuring
make
out
sure
trigonometry.
we're-
Well,
yeah.
we know dimensions, but what's the angle?
And just, and that's truly our message, don't do that anymore. Claire.
Appreciate the clarity on
I just looked at others. and I was like, "Yeah, right."
it. More confusing than necessary.
I mean, you guys can.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, we gotta figure that out,
Next time, sorry.
but I know we're,
I'll be.
you gotta make it exactly like that.
Nobody will see it, so we won't know.
Thanks very much. Thank you, guys.
That is yours. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we have item 7, which is upcoming meeting November 21st to December 19th.
What?
Okay, I'll be in touch.
Thank you. Thank you.
I do not have an application for this time in November, if you do, I will need to schedule that. Okay, I'll be in touch if we need to, so we'll let everybody know.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
And then Item B and C, any updates, discussion on diversity, equity, inclusion and or sustainability updates? Anything from staff? Anything from committee? All right, a motion for adjournment then.
Motion adjourned.
Second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Cool.
I didn't think they would make. Like whoever made those plans.
Generally. I'll make a broad statement.